News One, le tam-tam du continent. News One, le tam-tam du continent. News One, au cœur de l'information. News One, le tam-tam du continent. News One, le tam-tam du continent.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to B News One. And the program on the air is Newsroom. Newsroom is our debate talk show, and this is the 21st edition of a Newsroom on B News One, the tam-tam of the continent. I am Emmanuel Chakai, welcoming you to our studios in Oja, where we are coming to you live right opposite the last chiefdom of Oja on the Yaoundé Nsimaleng Highway. Tonight we will be discussing 4 topics. First, it is diplomacy. We will be looking at the decision of the United States government through its new Secretary of State, Mr. Blinken, Antony Blinken, who has said that they will impose visa restrictions on Cameroonians who do not want peace in the northwest and southwest regions, and who are promoters and actors in that violence, and it will be from both sides, not only the so-called separatists and then separatist fighters, and of course our national army. So we'll look at what impact that will have in the resolution of this crisis in the northwest and southwest. Second, on our debate list is societal issues concerning women of the civil society and human rights activists in Cameroon who wrote to United Nations Security Council to look into the Anglophone crisis and take a decision on that crisis. Likewise, the same women's group also wrote to the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, not to grant any loans to Cameroonians until the government shows clearly how they spent the 180 billion that was sent to fight against COVID-19. Can this request to the United Nations and also to the IMF be prosperous? And then thirdly, in real estate management, that's still on the societal issues actually, why the numerous land disputes and difficulties in establishing a land certificate in our major towns or cities in Cameroon? Why is it so difficult to have a land certificate? Then we will look at football, sports football, postponement, supposed postponement. Well, it's been postponed actually of AFCON 2021 draws initially scheduled for the end of the month of June, this June. Does it mean the AFCON Cameroon 2021 can be rescheduled or withdrawn from Cameroon? For what economical and political impact on Cameroon? We'll be looking into that, especially as CAF officials are supposed to be coming into the country. The Secretary General on Monday, they'll be arriving in Cameroon for a 2-day working visit with the local organizing committee to set new dates. And it's no longer AFCON Total is now Total Energy. So we don't know where this energy is coming from. We hope it is not a new, because a new is treating us very badly in terms of energy. Yes, so we'll look at all those points. And then, of course, we'll have time to conclude amongst ourselves here on certain current event issues that are going on now. We'll take it in the form of briefings at the end of the program. Tonight, I have very qualified and enthusiastic gentlemen who are going to assist in this discussion, this debate, analysis, and a lot of information will be distributed to you. To my right, it is Sissoko, Dr. Eyong Ta. He is human rights activist and a regional development engineer. You're welcome, Sissoko.
Thank you, Senior. It's a pleasure to be here again today. And I just hope, as you rightly said, that will be equal to the task, that of giving our little contributions to the problems, topics that we have to discuss here, to enlighten Cameroonians, to draw the attention of decision makers that, as they can see, Cameroonians are burning for change. Cameroonians are burning to see new things happen. And Cameroonians are already conscious of the fact that what we have is not up to what we are supposed to have, and so there is a possibility to get things better. We just hope that by the end of the program, our televiewers will not be disappointed. Thanks for inviting me again today.
Okay, thank you, Sissoko, for opening the floor. And we'll go next to your right, Mr. Nkenga Fak, who is here is a management consultant and also an economics expert. He's a teacher, and he's going to give a lot of advice also to our students who have started writing the exams. There are a few things which are not clarified with the Ministry of Secondary Education, but we think that the minister was on the field in two of the major centers in Yaoundé, at least to assure everybody that things are moving rightly. So, you're welcome, Mr. Ken.
Thank you, veteran journalist Emmanuel Chakai. Thanks for the confidence bestowed on us. I greet my fellow panelists. Thanks once more, and we believe that, as Sissoko just said, we'll be up to the task. We'll be more solution-oriented than problem-oriented. As you earlier said, the GC practical started already last Tuesday, and it's ongoing in other centers. Although feedbacks from the report says we have, like in ICT, computer, and those practicals where they need electrical energy, there were shortcuts and they had a lot of problems. We should have to go to the second set, and some candidates also did not come for the practicals in the northwest and southwest region. So at least the GC board did everything to put everything in place to see how they can cater for that particular problem at the level of MINESEC with the National Pedagogic Inspectors. So I thank you once more, and we hope the debate will be educative and instructive as usual.
Okay. Then to my left is Mr. Charles Maroulan, who is a politician and an enterprising businessman, and is also the national president of United Cameroon for Peace and Progress. They are just about 9 months or old. They're one of the US kids on the block besides the 11 who just brought the number of political parties in Cameroon to 330. You're welcome, Mr. Chair.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Jakai. With your kind permission, I would like to greet, first of all, my co-panelists and also all Cameroonians from all over the 10 regions, 50 divisions, and Cameroonians of both in the diaspora. It is my pleasure once more to be on air on the time of the continent.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll now go straight to our debate. The first topic for debate, the United States government, through its new Secretary of State, that's the Joe Biden regime, has stated that they will impose visa restrictions on those against peace in the northwest and southwest of Cameroon. The U.S. Secretary of State, Antony John Blinken, who was sworn on the 26th of January 2000 and 20,000 2021, this year, said that this peace is badly needed, and it should be durable peace. None of the parties have been able to reach an accord, meaning the warring factions and government. So the consequences have been severe for the local populations bearing the brunt. So the U.S. government says that we have to put a stop to that. Those who are inspiring that, of course, even if they are living in the United States, they will have to deport them to come and face charges in Cameroon. That's the way it will be done. They started with under the Donald Trump regime. 3 flights were scheduled for Cameroon. 2 already brought a few Cameroonians, and then the 3rd one, we can say, hit an iceberg during the winter season, because a few Cameroonians got to some congressmen who wrote saying that the immigration department should not execute that decision to throw them out. But now, after a review of what is happening, with now a counter letter coming out of Cameroon in its first parliamentary session for this year, which was signed by members of several political parties, including one, Honorable Joshua Oshi, who today is undergoing judgment for having joined the so-called the ruling party group, to send a serious letter of clarification of the situation to the United States Congress. And now it has, the Secretary of State has come back to their policy, coming back to what Thibault Nagy did when he was here. The former Secretary of State, Thibault Nagy, was here and said that people should come to the dialogue table or be wiped out, sort of. If you don't want to join the negotiation table, you'll be wiped out, because he says he understands the Cameroonianness of the situation, and Cameroonians are not ready to separate. On that basis, the United States government will always support Cameroon's, support and respect Cameroon's integrity and sovereignty, which of course Joe Biden has come in now and has just stated this. So, Mr. Chair, a politician, what's your political take on this?
You know, Mr. Mao Jakai, we have come to understand that Mr. Biya, in his capacity as the guarantor of national integrity, has not had a good faith, completely, like 100%, when it comes to solving the Anglophone crisis. we are Cameroonians of English expression, first of all. So it is like our problem, first of all. So the point is that what we told the government to do since 2016, the government did nothing about that. The government is trying to do things that have failed upon time, but they don't seem to understand that it is time to change their strategies. If you look at the monies that MINDEF is spending, to take FMOs, that's our force to maintain the lot, our FDS, our SED, that the gendarmerie, to Bamenda, and the monies of guns and cartridges and ammunition, and the prims of outstation service, Mr. Mao Jakai, the money is far much more higher than monies that could be used to make an appeasement to these separatist fighters in their quest of trying to separate Cameroon. Mr. Mao Jakai, we have had feelings of marginalization. We, Cameroonians of English expression, Mr. Mao Jakai. But the point is that the separatist fighters have gone beyond the line. But the point is that Mr. Biya has not done what he's supposed to do, to end the crisis. People who have been put to end the crisis have not been popular. They have not been with the people when times are bad. When times are good, I mean to say, and they can never be with the people when times are bad. People are not fools. The time has passed when the Bamenda man could collect 500 francs from politicians during campaigns. They have been having these feelings of marginalization for so long, and I think they are pushed to the wall. Secondly, Mr. Mao Jakai, we have told the government to do a gun buyback program. The America, which is a world power, did a gun buyback program in Syria. What is a gun buyback program? It is a program where the government buy back guns from these separatist fighters, from Hezbollah, from you name the rest, by Mao Jakai. So a price is levied for all the guns, to buy back the guns and clear the streets of the guns, because people who have illegal guns can do many bad things by Mao Jakai, and they have the powers, like the German officers, whereas they shoot people as computer games. And to conclude to what America is doing that very late, because America has been hosting these separatist fighters for so long, and Facebook, which is based in America, we have reported so many online direct abuse, that's direct messages made by separatist fighters like the dictators and you name the rest. They have instigated violence, and every if of every action, they will say tomorrow they are burning the school in Bamenda, that the school will be burned the next day. They are saying that tomorrow we are cutting fingers for people who are going to work in CDC. Fingers are being cut down. America has been seeing this. Why the delay? But they always say it's better late than never. But the point is that there's a communique that I read from the website of the American ambassador here in Yaoundé. They said a local court in the county in America has brought to book about 3 separatist fighters who have links with sending guns through Bauchi, Nigeria. It is from our report that was sent to the government. And the government is seeming so competent to afford. There are people in SET, DGSN and the FMOs who don't have our knowledge as computer engineers, who don't have the knowledge of tracking. Because in Enam, in Emir, and Yaoundé, they don't teach courses on how to track online separatists. This is a new phenomenon, Mr. Manjakai. They are doing how to use guns on thieves, how to make enquetes, how to send people to Konengi for prison. They don't have the knowledge on how to end the crisis, because even the Ministry of Communication, as we said before, has no platform to end our own crisis. The CRTV, which is saying the station, has no platform to fight separatists. It is an online version. We have remained enemies as Cameroonians of English expression, because they have seen us as enemies. They call us blacklist in quotes, because we try to tell them to understand that the gun cannot help them. The best thing is dialogue. And people know that dialogue cannot take place because the recent dialogue that took place was not a real dialogue, because it never included separatists. And the reconstruction program that the government put in place has failed, and is going to fail because former separatist fighters are the ones to stand in front of this reconstruction project. The person that was put in place is not popular, and money has already been siphoned. The government is playing with us, Mr. Manjakai. It's high time for the government to sit up and stop the deaths in the northern south region, because one day we shall speak with the blood face to face, and I think we shall have God to judge us. So finally, with your kind permission, I think people like Eric Tato, people like Mark Berata, people like Tapang Ivor, people like Emmanuel Sako in quotes, these are the people who are buying guns. Yabacho, that the people who are working with Russia to send guns to Cameroon. It is an official message. The government knows that. I don't know why they are sleeping. American government should not put these people aside. The main actioners, the ones that they were caught are just minor people. They don't have Facebook pages that instigate violence.
But how about those who have been taken to court? Tapa Ivo, by Barrister Insala. Barrister Insala was defending over 500,000 Cameroonians. What is happening with the court cases?
The point is that the American government thought that when they came to Cameroon, they may be treated with barbaric action. So they were never assured that there was a usual system that can treat them. Because they thought that maybe when they come to Cameroon, their head will be chopped off, and they are chopping off head of people. Because if the American government had the assurance that these people will come and face a good judgment, I think they could have come to Cameroon maybe earlier as 2016 in Jamaica. It is very, very late. 4 years is too long for the amount of people killed by these separatist fighters. America is late in their action, even though it is an applaudable action. But we are calling on the American government to look on Tapang Ivo, Eric Tato, and the other one. The ones that are not the main one.
We'll be coming back to you. We're still on it. We have enough time. Let me go now to Sissoko. Sissoko, Dr. Eyong Tar is a human rights activist, and of course a regional engineer with our regions, now 2 regions. He will have another different angle from us, Sissoko.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the floor. You know, since 2017, we kept reminding the protagonists that it is never a solution in any country to solve problems by violence. Whatever people try to say today, you can see that there is a lot of politicking and lies telling concerning the ongoing problem. No one can refuse the fact that the beginning of this issue started with the population coming out with peace plans. And since it has been a routine that whenever people come out, they must be squashed through force, the government decided to use that option. And it persisted for a long time to a point where deaths were being recorded. And we have consistently said that even when you have a child at home and you try to beat the child is running. If he gets to the wall, he will have to fight back. And we have repeatedly said that under normal circumstances, if it happened that the government thought they could use ammunition or guns to quell down the vexation in the northwest and southwest region, and they realized after 2 years that it was not working, where they came up with what they call the Major National Dialogue, it was possible for something concrete to come up, and which never did. And what was the reason? The first thing is that the system in place has been used to a certain system of governance, which is that of intimidation. Secondly, the 8 other regions of the country got their independence in 1960 under bloodshed, and they have been used to spilling blood even of citizens in order to get something. And then at one point again, it became very normal that you don't have to oppose a system. You have another group of people who knew that if what was happening continues, there is going to be a change of status quo, and most of them were going to lose the privileges that they had. Because whenever a problem like that comes up seriously, on a dialogue table, what normally ends up is a government of national unity. It's a dissolution of the institution like the parliament and the senate for something unanimous to come in. The majority of those who are in these places know that they don't have legitimacy. They know that if things were to be done the right way, not up to 30% of those in these places are going to come back. So they are doing everything possible not to let that happen. Again, when you look at the way things happen, the international community has not actually been too silent. It is because of the geopolitics in the world, where they knew that Cameroon is a French territory and France could manage the situation to the best of their knowledge. That is why even when the UN unofficial Sharia meeting or area meeting took place, they kept asking France what was the way forward. And if you heard the French ambassador's defense in that meeting, he said it was an internal problem and France was ready to help Cameroon to resolve the matter. Exactly. So they have been seeing the problem as French problem, and that France could help resolve the matter. And the Cameroonian government too had been playing on the basis that it was an internal matter and could be resolved internally. At one point, the US government had actually put pressure on the government through the Undersecretary of State for Foreign Affairs and even the former US ambassador to Cameroon. They made so many outings which showed that they had noticed that the government was not handling the crisis properly. And nothing was done to that effect. Instead, many media houses, politicians and the rest came out and castigated these persons. And then at one point, they initiated what they call the Swiss talk. The Swiss talk actually was going to give a leeway, because in the Swiss talk, most of the, who can call them separatist groups, were willing to participate, and they were already participating. But what happened? Instead of the government being represented by eminent persons in the government, it was an NGO that was representing the government. And at one point, these guys realized that there was no commitment on the side of the government, and they withdrew. And then, when it came down to the case of the Major National Dialogue, as you rightly said in the intro, it was, they didn't actually want to resolve the problem. It was a way to moderate the international community's opinion on what was going to happen. And you could see that they tried to put in place institutions that were not going to work. And they have not worked up to now, and they will not work. Again, when you look at the way the situation is being handled, the major problems that are supposed to be solved, nothing has been done to that effect. The president, Mr. Roland, was talking about the issue of assimilation. Nothing is being done to that effect. There is a problem of marginalization. Nothing is being done to that effect. There is a problem of bad governance. Nothing is being done to that effect. There is a problem of social injustice or that of the judiciary. Nothing is being done to that effect. There is a problem of electoral procedures and the electoral code that is not consensus. Many people are not for it, because even if you are popular and you work like Roland, if you go for election in your places, you will lose. Not because you are not popular, but because a mechanism has put in place that you're not able to control. Electoral problem. So these are a number of issues that have not been touched in any way. And so, despite all the different efforts that are being made, it continues to instead give the situation a reason to go flare. Because as we have said from our human rights investigations, the separatist groups are found in 4 categories. You have those who are politically enlightened, who are fighting for separation. You have the second category, who are those who are there for vengeance, because they killed somebody of theirs, they burned their family house, they burned their business, they are there that they was revenge against the military. You have the other category of those who were jobless and who have seen an opportunity to make money. They are there for survival. It's like an employment possibility for them. And you have the 4th category, who are the thieves, who have now come in and they have seen a possibility to steal officially, unofficially. And so I strongly think that in the separatist camps, if they diagnose the problem in this manner, it will give a leeway on how to handle it. If you go to the side of the government, there are people, as we have said, who know that they don't merit the appointment that they have. They are there either for tribalistic purposes, either for cultural purposes, either for partisan purposes, either for regional balance purposes, either because they want to use them for the divide and rule tendency. So they know that if this matter actually goes to a dialogue table, most of the things that will come to a dialogue table will disfavor them. There are other categories of people in the regime who have seen it as a money-making business, because a lot of money has been pumped. Firstly, it was intended to bribe some people to change camp. It did not work. Some people actually succeeded. Like there are some people like the Smiths who are making a lot of money from the process, who doesn't know where he belongs. Now he's no longer talking. But we know the type of money he's making from this issue in the name of wanting to mediate between separatists and the government. And he is claiming to have removed some of the young people from the bush to the DDR centers. We even know of the case of Kmer, for example, who boast time and again that they are making a lot of efforts to remove separatists from the and so on and so forth. This is another category of people. Within the military rank, there are many people in the military, mostly the soldiers, who have never known how sweet it is to make extra money from their salaries, because they were only used to that. Police and gendarmes, those who are on the road, were used to. Since this crisis started, the guys have tasted what it means to make extra money. Some of them have about 3 times their salaries, either by harassment, either by their allowances that they are given, either through some other mechanisms to make them to do what they have to do. These ones will not want the crisis to end because they have not yet achieved some of their benefits. We even know properties of some people that have been gotten between 2018 and 2020. Properties that they did not have before then. So if they have to investigate, we can show some of those places for them to prove how they managed to get so much money between 2018 and 2020 to get some of the investment that they have. And that is why we have kept repeating in the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa that an elephant cannot hide in a granite farm. And Cameroon is a granite farm. All those who think that they are elephants, they are missing the point. Because come rain, come shine, they will face justice, and it is already the beginning of it all. So I strongly think that from a diagnosis perspective, we can see that if an external hand doesn't come in as it has started coming, then there will be a very long way to go. Because while the military is claiming successes, the armed separatists are gaining more experiences. These are people who have never known how they could use even gentle explosive for the rocks breaking. Today they are planting them and using them efficiently. There are many of them there who have never used an AK-47. Today they are experts of it until they are even using military guns with a lot of ease. How do we manage all these problems? So I think that maybe when we come for solutions and all of that, yes, we'll be able to give concrete solutions based on our objectives, based on the studies we have made, based on the findings that have worked elsewhere, so that if Cameroon is serious, they can implement them. And trust me, in about 6 months' time, we can start getting concrete results.
All right, Mr. Kegafak, you're a management consultant, so how do we manage this crisis? When we see all this, we have done the diagnostic of this problem, and the threat from America is there, but we're not going to look at that because we have to seek for that solution ourselves before the Americans come in with other major groups.
Yes, Mr. Jakai, as the other panelists already said, I will not come back to the brilliant genesis of the Anglophone crisis, which was really given, which was a good expose given by a doctor, and the politicians also have really analyzed the situation. But as we earlier said, we will not come back to the problem issue to be problem-oriented, but to be solution-oriented, because the problem is already there. How can we move from there? So I will start by saying Cameroon and America had diplomatic ties since 1957. So July 57, the first diplomatic office was opened in Cameroon by the United States. So if you take July 2021, will be 64 years of diplomatic ties, a relationship with America. It is not, if America is coming up, America at the level of diplomacy is a giant, and is one of the permanent members of the Security Council. And as Sissoko earlier said, it started in 2019 when during the Trump administration, where their sanction was geared towards economic and trade benefits which Cameroon had, and they said they dismissed and jailed it concerning that particular one, talking about extrajudicial killings, torture, and violation of human rights by Cameroonian security forces. That was during the Trump administration. And since a new administration came in place, they don't want to follow that particular economic aspect. They've stepped up by one step by putting or mounting pressure on the Yaoundé government to sit and talk with the armed separatist groups, to sit on one table without condition. And the visa restriction does not target a particular individual. It doesn't target a particular individual. The Secretary of State on the 7th of July came during the press briefing and said this resolution, they have to go 7th of June. Yes. It was on 7th of June that he came.
July.
Yes. So he said they have to step up this particular aspect by putting on pressure that the Cameroonian government has to sit with the armed separatists to try to look for a solution. Like Sissoko and Mr. Moa earlier said, this in many countries in Africa and in the world, we have had separatist groups, but they have succeeded to solve their own problems in one way or the other by coming on the table of negotiations. If you talk about the facts in Colombia, they have been there for 50 years, but now they have been transformed into a political party.
Yeah, but
so the government should use.
How do we bring these other factions?
Yes,
to come to the negotiating table.
That is why the Antony
the Cameroonian case, because when you look at Mark Barretta, Bo Habert, they are all US citizens, and now let me tell you, to bring them to the negotiating table,
exactly.
The United States has to release them, to travel out of continental United States to the negotiating table, and it is not given like that because on the choice. Each judge in the 50 states, each judge has a right to impose a restraining order on their being court-martial. If they have taken part in terrorist activities, United States courts, the federal courts must judge them and punish them, irrespective of
I will say in terms of geopolitics and international relationship, there is no friendship there. It's all about interests.
Yeah.
And if America is coming up strong, because America, what we call the Gulf of the Guinea, they have a very high interest because Cameroon is at the Gulf of the Guinea, and the interest of America is at stake here, because we should not only see it at the level of, at the basic level, we should also see at the level of geostrategical level. As we always said, because in management we say a country should know its strengths and weaknesses, take advantage of its opportunities while avoiding threats. It's an opportunity, as you already said. Most of these activists or those who are sponsoring, as Mr. Moa and Mr. Sissoko said, most of them are in America. Most of America, you saw they gave the petition from the National Assembly, yes, that they should not only criticize, but all those people that are there, they should repatriate.
And this is taken seriously because it comes from the people's representatives, just like they also acted to protect the American citizens, who most of them, unfortunately for the United States government, originally from Cameroon.
And this position of the American government is not viewed in a good mind in the Cameroonian regime, because if you see the next day on the 8th of July, what Cameroon Tribune published, the position of the Yaoundé, they were not happy because the American, that's Antony Blinken, cannot put the Cameroonian government and this armed separatist group at the same footing, because his communication was seeming that they are putting them at the same level, that they should sit and talk as if they are mates. That is what the Yaoundé regime.
They are more than mates. They are Cameroon citizens.
No, that is what they are rejecting, that they should not put them at the same footing, because extrajudicial killings, torture, violation of human rights in both sides, and most NGO and human rights activists, when those people perpetrate torture, extrajudicial killings, they don't come up as when the Cameroon security forces do. So they also say they should try to be partial in their treatment, and also instigating and also pressurizing the other camps to liberate, and also they should come and drop their weapons, and they should sit and do everything to solve this long-lasting situation.
Mr. Moore, yes. How do we get how do we get the dictators to come? If you go to Switzerland, most of them were afraid to go, that they will be secret service men that will arrest them and bring them to town. Because no, wait a minute, we have forgotten that Sissoko Ayuk, who is supposed to be the president of the Abazan Republic, is jailed and is here. So now what is this other man, what do you call him again? Kmer?
Samuel Sako.
What is Sako going to say? He claims he's on one side, he's a pastor, and one time he's negotiating, but then he's buying arms, and we saw in the Batibo area that he had his own guns,
his own faction,
and Ayabacho had his own faction, and Ayabacho had the upper hand, because the infighting amongst them made for Sako's factions to be wiped out. They were eliminated on a Guzan market day. The whole market, the women came out wailing. Those boys were all tied, their hands were tied behind, and they shot them in the forehead. Those young men. So how do you bring Sako? Sako has to come and answer.
What can be done for the Anglophone crisis now is, first of all, to have a ceasefire first. Why they are talking about people in America? Because people are still dying in Bamenda and in Boya. Secondly, the government should do an urgent gun buyback program. Thirdly, all the military men who are present in Bamenda, the FMOs, the FDS, most of them have stayed there for so long, they have become used to these separatist fighters. You cannot imagine that comments in his office. He told the commandant of Bafut to escort him in his office. When they went there 5 minutes later, the separatist fighters came. Who told them? Who told them that the SJ was going to his office? And they took monies and they killed people. The point is that there's a control here at the entrance of my 8 from Wom, going to Bafut into Bamenda. The separatist fighters have their own control legally in a country which is a Republican country. It is a sabotage. So I'm calling on the set, Iflandre of set, and Barangele of DJSN, and also the man of Mindef, Betty Asomo, to quickly sit up and change all the FMOs who are coming in Bamenda, because they are making business with the separatist fighters. I have all the proof, Mr. Machakai. And the point is that we came up with a system on how to teach these military men on how to track weapons. Mindef and SET gave no reply. Why? Because we are Cameroonians of English expression. They don't want Anglophone to solve the problem, and they are solving it in the French way, which is not working, because they don't know our terrain. They don't know the Anglophone man more than us. So the point is that the people who are behind the enemy crisis need to be changed. First, the management of the digital centers, because the digital centers are still a nightmare. Somebody who has been in the bushes, kidnapping people, taking tens of millions, cannot learn how to keep files at the digital center. It is a sabotage. We should learn how to face the truth. Somebody who has used a Kalashnikov or an AK-47, kidnap people, collected a lot of millions, cannot go and learn how to solve justice at the digital center. The data center is lacking computer maintenance. It is lacking cell phone maintenance. It is lacking audiovisual maintenance. These are things that give you money. They should stop pulling off the Jakarta. The management of the data centers, it should be blamed first. Why? Because it is the center where the ones who have dropped weapons are going there. How can they stay 3 years in the data center? Doing what there? Most of them have pick up arms because they have stayed along the data center. There's no framework of putting them in society. There's no framework, 0% framework of making these former security fighters who are repentant to drop weapons and enter the society. There's no Mr. Jakarta. They are striking every day. They are giving them money, 3, 4, 5 million. It is a sabotage. The government is doing nothing to end the crisis. Why? Because the centers in Mora, in Bamenda and Boya are too few to end the crisis, which is hierarchy 13 divisions. We have 13 divisions in the Anglophone 2 regions. The data centers are those 2. How can somebody leave Akwaya or Njan to go and drop weapons in Boya at the station? How can somebody leave Furawa or Oku or maybe from Bafmen or from Funda to go and drop weapons in Bamenda? It is sabotage. The government will sit up. We are calling on the government to create mini data centers in all the 13 divisions so that people can drop weapons in their village. People can work with the shifters. The shifters, what are they doing? They went to NAM to come and income money. They are doing nothing. The shifters are doing nothing to any crisis because they are taking the salaries. People are working. We cannot go to Bamenda freely because it is paying us the more. If these ministers could stay for a year without going to their village to go end the crisis, it's not touching them because they are not from Bamenda or from Boya. And since Bamenda is noted for their hard work and their industry and education, most of them have sent their children abroad. They don't care what happened to Jakarta. So if a son of minister was kidnapped, I bet you the crisis could have ended. But the problem is that since they are kidnapping poor people, they are raping poor people, they are burning the houses of poor people, the government is not taking it serious. So I think it is high time for us to sit up and fear God. People who are dying in Bamenda are more than our national budget. People who are dying in Bamenda are more than COVID funds. The government should stop the zigzag and come out straight to end the crisis by, first of all, the ceasefire on both sides, removing all the FMOs in Bamenda because they are collaborating with the civil fighters. I don't know whether the reports that we sent to Mindel, why don't they use it? The report that we sent to said, why don't they? Because we are Kmer expression. They don't want to work with us. They don't want us to take the ground to any crisis, which is killing our own people. Him, doctor, I know him for so many years. He has fought the crisis. He has even sent things to the president. I know. Me the same, nothing has been done. And they are doing it the wrong way every day. The government is sending people to go and die in Bamenda, FMOs. They're sending people to die in Bamenda. The money that are using to buy those guns to go to Bamenda, they can use the money to solve the crisis. They can do it to money settlements, visas, jobs. The Bamenda man is a man of dignity. When he has a good job, he cannot steal. They have pushed them to the wall from Jakarta. Even though the civil fighters have gone a wrong way to eradicate their form of romanization, but the government too is to be blamed. Why? The government has a national cake. The government has DGSN. The government has SET. The government has MINDAT. The government has the presidency. They have the power. They are sleeping. We have no power. We have not the budget to end the crisis. So the government should sit up before even talking about if they arrest Mabrata today, it's not going to end the crisis. The Almighty Sisiko is the boss. He is the founder of the Anglophone crisis. They are the starter. The startup. He's there in prison. Nothing will change. If they take Mabrata, it will change nothing. They will come there to say nothing. Those guys are still in the bushes. Let the government hurry up to do a gun buyback program to buy back those guns. Let the government levy a price for a gun. Even a child will pick up an Okalash and will rush it to the data center. Let the government use our taxpayers' money and pay taxes. Let them create data centers in the 13 divisions so that a child can drop a gun in a neighborhood and be free. Even if they don't go to the data center, let them close the center, but let them reinstate the children because somebody cannot leave room with Jakarta. It is about 70 kilometers to leave room to go and drop weapon. How can I drop a weapon at the data center in Bamenda? It is for claw. How can you have one data center in the whole northern region? And the northern region has 7 divisions. While the southwest has 6 divisions. How can 6 divisions host a one data center? Mr. Jakarta. The government is playing the game. The game should end. America is wasting their time because we will arrest those guys. It will change nothing. It will change nothing. The guns are there in the ground. If they don't do a gun buyback program, the guns will still be there. People will be dying. And the FMOs need to be changed because how can you imagine that there will be a military control separatists in our country, a Republican country, a strong country like Cameroon? The Mindel boss needs to sit up. He's not working a lot. He's not working at all. The set is not working at all. What they do is to arrest ministers, send them to prison for embezzlement. They should arrest. They should stop sending general officers in Bamenda with taxpayers' money. They should use this money to solve the crisis. by appeasing these separatist fighters, by buying back the guns, putting the money in society, enriching the data centers.
Okay, thank you very much. Gun buyback program. That is your
America did it.
No, it's your
information.
It is your major proposal and it's practical.
Yes, America did it. It worked.
Just a minute.
America won't
Please, just a minute. Leave America alone. We're talking Cameroon now. We're concluding in Cameroon.
Exactly.
We're talking in Cameroon. A child who brings the gun to a center next to the DO's office, the divisional officer's office, and drops it, should be given money for bringing that weapon. He now has something to feed himself and the family. So he will drop that gun. Instead of taking it to Bamenda, it will go and he has nothing.
They'll kill him away.
So what you are saying, that is our strong, one of our strong proposals here. Sissoko,
I will try to go very fast.
Yes,
I will go very fast. I will just be practical. When a crisis degenerates into an armed conflict, there are laid down scientific steps or practical steps that must be followed. In our case for now, what is needed is what we call in the armed conflict resolution negotiations.
Exactly.
There will be no other way out than to begin with negotiations. And what do we do by negotiations? By negotiations here, it means you look for credible people who will be accepted by those who are clamoring for secession. And when they meet these people, they should have the authority to discuss on issues that will not be referred to somebody to think again otherwise. Because the first problem that is aggravating this issue is that there has been complete loss of trust. Whoever they send to go and talk with the separatists or the leaders, there is always suspicion on the caliber of the person to make decisions. So the first thing is negotiation. What comes into a negotiation? In the negotiation, the separatists are asked what alternative, because their position is already clear. The question is what alternative,
Separation.
apart from separation, that if given concretely, efficiently, they can change their option. And definitely they have an answer to that, which I know. When that answer is given, is the other party
where they say there's no term limit, then you just change the country to a kingdom. After all, there is no taboo being a kingdom. There are countries in the world that are kingdoms and they are operating very well. If we are not a kingdom, then democracy has limitation of terms. Another thing is the judiciary in Sanjakai. The judiciary of Cameroon is a serious problem. Once the judiciary is not independent, people lose faith and they cannot fight the strong even when the strong are wicked. And it becomes possible for the strong to crush the young, to crush the weak, and that is one of the greatest problems in this country. In the constitution, the judiciary is not independent. It is under the executive and directly under the president, and when you look at the Ministry of Justice, it is attached to the presidency. That poses a problem of the judiciary independence. You go again to the form of the government, still in the constitution. The form of state is a problem. The decentralized system will not work. It will not work. I stand to be challenged in the next 5 years. It will not work. So what is needed from our own perspective, it is a federal system of government. And if that can be put into place, they should start thinking on how that has to be brought in the constitution, and then it will moderate the issue of people wanting to work in the central government, people wanting to work in the government, because the private sector will be materialized, it will be boosted, and people will feel more relaxed to work and create wealth instead of consuming wealth that few people have created. And to end up, we will go forward to reformulate the country entirely. Many institutions in this country are just feeding on taxpayers' money for nothing. For example, take the case of the National Assembly. You quoted an example that they had to write a letter to the American government. That was being childish. The American Congress people did not write a letter to Cameroon government. Exactly. They wrote a letter to their president asking him to take certain actions concerning the Cameroonian in their territory. This, what the Cameroonian parliament was supposed to do was to write a letter to the president of Cameroon, indicating that, yes, indicating just like the Congress wrote to the president of America. They were supposed to write to the president of Cameroon to tell him their position and what they expect the government to do. They did not do. They instead wrote a letter and sent to the American Congress. I don't know since when they became friends as Congress or elected officials for them to do partnership. And then when you look at it again in terms of the Senate, that is one of the houses that to me has no use in the context of Cameroon. If they say the use was to link the assembly, to link the local assemblies, are they telling that a parliamentarian does not have link with his assembly? They say it is to prepare if the vacancy at the presidency, the president of the Senate takes over. When it was the president of the National Assembly, what was the problem with it? I don't think that has consumed about 500 million francs CFA a month. If you take that time 12 months a year, that is about 6 billion, excluding other issues that house consumes for nothing. It will be dissolved as well. And then you come to an administrative school, the president was talking about it, and now it has to be restructured to become an entrepreneurial training center, where they send people go there to learn how to do management and not how to do governance that has no sense, that is not money, that does not even serve the Cameroonian people the right way. Then you come back to the electoral body, since politics is what governs the country. They have to relook into this institution that carry out elections, notably Elections Cameroon, because as we are saying, you don't need to be represented in an electoral poll for their votes to be safe. Exactly. Because if you have a candidate in an area and the candidate can go through elections, the electoral body should be able to carry out the election without you being there. What they need now is that you must have a representative of their party in that place. Exactly. If you don't have, everything can happen against your party. That is not what it's supposed to be. So these are a number of governing issues, political issues, constitutional issues that we think from our latest study that we have made, that if they have to renew Cameroon, if they have to make Cameroon peaceful again, if they have to make Southern Cameroon that feel belonging again, some of these aspects should become practical, real, and they are possible because the world is made up of people and Cameroon.
Thank you, Mr. Kanafak. Let's wrap up.
It's a very passionate
debate.
That really
we'll still come back to it because there are developments, and you'll still be called up. I'm taking notes.
The topic is really broad.
Yes.
Although the main topic that brought us today was the impact of the press release of Antony Blinken. For what impact? I believe no solution is discarded. No matter where it comes, the end result is that there should be peaceful resolution of this crisis. So I will not exclude that particular intervention, no matter what all what we're saying here, we're getting towards a peaceful solution. So if they can step up pressure and mount it on Yaoundé and try to bring the belligerents together to have a ceasefire and all the propositions which the panelists have given, we think we can move ahead.
1 second, please. I think if the government fails to implement what Doctor has said, that's the main thing of the United Cameroon People's and Progressive Political Party, and the time is now. If the government fails, they are watching us, let the right out presidency, all the ministers. If the government fails to implement what he has listed, it is the same with the UCPP. Cameroon will not have peace. And I bet you, presently as we speak, 6 regions are fighting the regime, not by the gun. 2 regions are already off with the regime. So if we are facing any elections without these changes, Cameroon can go into a civil war, and we don't like it. The government should sit up. They have tried for close to 40 years running the state machinery. There's a time to fall. They have to understand that the time is now. But we don't want them to fall like fools. We want them to understand that they can still work with us, the youth, to accompany Cameroon in a difficult task of becoming an emerging economy. It has been on theory for so long. It is time to make it practical. No matter how far they go with the civilians in America, without changing the system, Cameroon will never change.
Yes, systems will not change overnight also. My brother,
yes,
you don't change 40 years in a night. No, excuse me. You don't change 40 years.
You have a link with the regime.
I am here to educate the public and give them the facts.
With due respect, no, you are taking the regime side.
Yes, but there is no peace with violence.
40 years.
And if you're pushing up for
close to 40 years,
advocating for violence, which of course, let me tell you, I'm concluding. No, we have overdone our time. You have the conductor.
Exactly.
We are here working on time. It's not a market. It's not a marketplace. It's a marketplace of ideas, but that has to be used in a certain period.
It's a choice, though.
Former Thibault Nagi was accused of double standards, but he was clear on 2 things. The respect of Cameroon's sovereignty.
That one is normal. Sovereignty.
And he said, those who are greedy, those who are greedy and vicious and want no end to the hostilities in the northwest and southwest have no more place. They don't have any more playground to play on. The time for negotiations, dialogue and peace is now and not tomorrow.
The regime is
in the war, yes, the regime is there. The regime will go, there will still be problems. So please, that is what will be done. America will take its decisions, but those who are American citizens with Cameroonian origins will not be easily dismantled. It's just like money who goes to America, that's embezzled and taken to America, cannot easily come back. So based on that, we'll do what is within our means and work with several partners and encourage our people to seek reconciliation and progress. Because if we do not reconcile, then they don't see a headway. So we'll be right back after this. Okay, welcome back to studio of the Being News One TV station, the tam-tam of the continent. We're having, of course, a serious debate here. We just finished with diplomacy. We'll be going now to meet the women. The women, the civil society and human rights activists, including local here, have written to the United Nations Security Council to invite, to take a decision on the crisis in Cameroon. Likewise, asking the International Monetary Fund not to disburse any funds to Cameroon. And the IMF will be meeting on the 25th. Now, they stated clearly that the 180 billion francs that was given to Cameroon for COVID-19 funds should be, they should clearly state what that money was used for. If not, the women's civil society and human rights activists say no more aid should be given to Cameroon from the IMF. So we just have 13 more days to go. IMF is going to meet. So your take on it, Sissoko, you are a human rights activist, and these are some of the things that people must have been discussing. No, you have been discussing in the background. It may not necessarily be the terms of this women's society and the action of writing. This channel we are quoting here is just that's how the cat was let out of the bag. So how do you think, can this request be prosperous for Cameroon?
Well, actually, the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa works in partnership with many other human rights organizations and civil society groups, and we even give advice to political parties. Many of them have been consulting us. I will tell them what we think. First of all, the United Nations internal rules and regulations gives room for citizens of member countries to table complaints of human rights abuses or any problem that they have with their government. And so the first thing is that those women are legitimate in their right, in their quarrel or in their letter. The second thing is that governance must go with accountability. This is not the first time that we have had problems in Cameroon concerning mismanagement of state funds or monies that have been borrowed. And if today the COVID own is raising a lot of eyebrows, it is not because the Cameroon government actually wanted to do auditing. It is because it was a condition sine qua non for the other part of the loan to be given. Because you realize that most of the other auditings that have taken place, and they even gave names of people who did mismanagement or embezzlement, they did not make it public the way this one has become public. And so, if it happens that the COVID gate is the one that is going to lay the groundwork for accountability in Cameroon, then the better for us. Again, these women are women of substance. Some of that I know they are travelers, and they have links with the United Nations. They have even had contracts with the United Nations on feminist issues. If you remember somebody like Madame Maximilienne Gombe, she had an award last year from the US State Department in connection to human rights activities. Madame Edith Kawala has also done same. If you take somebody like Madame Alice Com, she is also one of the prominent Cameroonians who has a lot of influence in the diaspora. And so these are women who can knock and open any doors at the international level. So I think that they work in partnership with other women groups in the USA and even in Europe. For example, when they did this, a few days after, another group of 11 human rights women groups in the diaspora wrote additional letters. But you see, the only worry that I have is that Cameroon has been surviving thanks to monies that are borrowed. And if, because money has been mismanaged, we Cameroonians give the room for these avenues to be locked, I fear if it's not going to take us to more chaos. Because most of the projects that have been realized in Cameroon, sometimes more than 80%, sometimes 70% of the investment is borrowed money, especially the giant projects in Cameroon. So if it happens that they close the windows or doors to these sources of income, I have a strong feeling that it will be very difficult for the government to move forward. So what I simply think should be done is that the government should speed up with this inquiry concerning the COVID gate, make things clearer so that this letter does not prosper. Because if that letter actually prospers, the IMF is going to see a lot of loopholes which are real, and they may have to execute what, and more to that, the head of the IMF for now is a woman. She may have a soft spot for her fellow women who are crying and justifying their cry, and maybe go to do what it is. But I will hope that since it's international politics and international diplomacy, they also have an interest giving money to countries. Because apart from the poor countries like Cameroon, the rich countries don't borrow money from IMF. If Africa does not exist,
many institutions of the United Nations will not exist. Yes, because there is no way that France will borrow money from IMF. There is no way that Britain will borrow money from the World Bank. So these institutions are actually tailored to make money circulate in the world, but circulate within the poor countries and the rich countries. So they have every interest that country should borrow the money. What they simply want that to know is to make sure that when they get the money, something useful should come from it while they keep paying the money. So I strongly think that the government should speed up with the process of this inquiry so that when the IMF wants to work on that document, they would show proof that we have done what you asked us to do, and we can assure you that subsequently any money taken from you will follow this pattern. Now the whole Cameroon will benefit. So this is positive.
And you know, one thing, this revelation is like recalling to mind that the president modified the 2021 finance law, authorizing us to rebuy our treasury bonds for between 450 billion to 750 billion for a total of 1,100 million francs CFA. So we also need this, and I feel, let me not jump the gun, though we're running out of time, to conclude that COVID gate seems to be trying to close. The next 72 hours of working time, we'll see a major shakeup.
Yeah, Mr. Monjakai,
we'll see a major shakeup in the country.
Mr. Monjakai, I think
if they went down, the investigators went down to the ministry of a minister of state with all their accountants and asked the minister to bring all the close collaborators, and to our biggest surprise, that ministry has not received the money that was destined for it. It has not been channeled from finance to its own credit line.
Yeah.
So that is a new development.
Sure.
It's a new development in Cameroon. So you see, Mr. Kengafak, that's what I was talking about management, you know.
Yes, exactly as you earlier said, these human rights, there were 20 women human rights activists and civil society leaders, especially with the frontliners, which are Edith Kabanwala of the CPP and Stand Up for Cameroon, Madame Tumaino Damjoya, which is the actual mayor of Fumban, and also a former policymaker, which we know her position at the law of the national scene, because this woman have won elections, and she's, since the departure of the leader, her husband, she's taken the forefront. Will not come back to work. Alice Com, who is an advocate, a lawyer, practitioner, Madame Ngombe of Redak, Henri Kwe, who have really fight for the past 20 years concerning the violation of human rights and freedom in Cameroon. So what we are proposing is that concerning these particular aspects, the women, they went to the United Nations, they are calling on the United Nations Security Council to try to see into the resolution of crisis in Central Africa, because they never targeted this ONG, Mr. Seko, are not only targeted. You put on work only in Cameroon. No, we work in the sub-region, Central Africa, Chad, Boko Haram and others. Yes, because their plea is a global. But since Cameroon is the catalyst and the generator of the main trade people at the center in Central Africa, Mr. Jakai, so they think if the neighbors of Cameroon have problems, then Cameroon also will have problems. And if Cameroon is attacked economically, the whole Central African region will suffer, because we know the weights of Cameroon in Central Africa concerning that. But Madame Kabanwala said we should not wait and call for troops, UN troops, and so when things are crucial. This is the moment. They should come in and try to see that they call the belligerent, the Cameroonian government, Boko Haram and others to come into table and try to resolve this crisis in Central Africa, because we don't want that they should send UN troops and so on, international aids, humanitarian aid and so on and so forth. Concerning now the IMS, International Monetary Fund, there is a latest development, Mr. Jakai. It seems as if the Cameroonian government have agreed with the new president of IMS that the second part will be disbursed, because they have promised the IMF that there are internal, there is what we call investigations, and all those, as you said in 72 hours, things will happen. That is the credibility and and what I promised to the IMF, which the IMF have agreed to disburse the second part. But why coming? Because the audit bench did a partial report, but the final report I've not had it. We have a that they will come out saying, but we have not had it. And as you earlier recall, the audit bench audit public accounts, the public accounts of public and semi-public enterprises. It's an external body of the Supreme Court that controls public accounts, while the Supreme State Control is an internal body that their aim is to control the internal audits or accounts of the government. And just 3 weeks ago, the Supreme State Control was boggled. So things are moving along the line. So we pray that this plea, this women will first encourage them, because are courageous, Mr. Moa, in Cameroon to be a woman politician and to be activist is not an easy task. They are really empowered. They are really empowered, and we believe the IMF.
They have blown the whistle. They have blown the whistle. My brother, they have blown the whistle.
So we hope they yield the fruits.
They have blown the whistle. They have done their part. And that's it.
And in the managerial point of view, they're working now in synergy. You know, on this platform, I've always talked about we should work in synergy, where two or more hands can work together and achieve a greater output. Because most of these human activist groups, they're always working in isolation, independently, as if their points are taken, it will be as if a trophy. Why is the same thing? Where you go all the resolution proposals on the same line.
I would like to inform you just with 30 seconds.
Parties should come
to the next topic.
Should be solution oriented and problem, because all the time I've been telling Mr. Ma also here, they come and cry foul, they talk. It is high time you do what we call target lobbying. There are 5 Security Council permanent members: France, America, United Kingdom, Russia, and China. So if the global cannot work, you target you go personally and you try to, because once one member blocks a resolution, a resolution can never come out.
Yeah, I think also, or it is good news for Cameroonians. I think we have 13 days to the IMF meeting, so we have those 12 days and some few hours to have maybe a new government. And the only action which is going to take place is that the statement who are involved in the stealing of the COVID funds are going to be caught, sent to prison to prove to IMF that working. So there is a chance for us to have a by force new government. So we should expect a new government within 12 days.
Well, no, I don't care what you are saying, money. I've told you 12 days. These mechanisms
12 days. 12 days
collecting money from those who have if you want, go and steal money and say your wife will have no access to your bank account. Your wife will have access only to one home, one family home, whether it's in the village, but everything in the city here will be seized right away. I have recalled here. So when you come and start talking with pessimism on certain aspects,
cannot stand
I don't feel it is right.
Unless they say they would have done money.
We are here to give people
hardworking people to steal money for help.
It is the last straw that breaks the camel's back. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's just dive straight into real estate management. Why the most land disputes and difficulties in establishing, of course, a land certificate in our major towns in Cameroon. You know, you just have 2 minutes each to go through that. We're running out of time. We have just 10 minutes to go, and I have 2 topics for these 10 minutes. So let's. Who is taking the shot? Real estate. Who is the expert here?
Well, I think the first thing is that land is a very precious investment tool, because anything that has to be done in terms of development is done on land. And so it has become a tool where the rich think that the more they own, the better for them. Secondly, it is a real estate investment is one which is never deceiving. The value only keeps increasing. It is a precious good where you can buy a real estate today for £1,000,000 and in the next 45 minutes you sell it at a higher price, not to talk of after years. And then again, when you look at it in terms of owning land certificates, you will see that in Cameroon, the land law that was made in Cameroon is as old as 1974. Exactly. It has not been changed after that. We have written a number of proposals. At one point, a committee was even put in place to work on that, which has already done its work and has forwarded in terms of the changes or
the revisions that are intended to be done in that document, and it is lying somewhere because the changes will actually affect those who have been getting this land illegally. Again, when you go to that document, you will see that there is no clear-cut procedure on how to get a land title. When they say that to begin, when you buy a land, maybe you begin with the traditional ruler, where they abandon the customary rights. They call it abandon the droit coutumier. From there, you have to meet with the DO. The DO will form a commission, and the commission goes to the field. In all these things, they don't put specific periods. They don't put the amount of money. But they say they have to go to the field in terms of periods, such that when they want to go to the field, it depends on who is involved. They determine the amount of money that you have to give. In addition to that, the land titles are signed by the presidency to get a land certificate. It has been centralized to a point where it is complicated to get to that point. By the time it crosses all these other points to get to that level, so many things have happened along the way. And they know that once it is signed, in most cases, it's supposed to be non-revocable. Though some have been cancelled when they realize that it has been done fraudulently. I think that, honestly, the land issue in Cameroon, though we don't have enough time to talk about it, is something that is very serious and is going to create the next generation of conflict, as it's already doing in so many other places.
Not to let the cat out of the bag, but after COVID gate, the next is a real estate gate.
Yeah.
It is already making. So the making, so has happened. All land titles cancelled and
all of that. And it has to come as no justification.
Justifications.
Yes. People even buy houses, build them, Mr. Emmanuel, and instead of putting them on rents for individuals, they rent them to the government.
Yes.
They rent them to the government. A clear-cut example is the regional council in the southwest. It was supposed to be in somebody's house. The mayor had to stand his ground with some senators like my friend Belamuki, and said it cannot happen when government houses are there, GRA pending, so they had to move to that place, and some of them had problems with the said individual whose name we are not going to call here. So I think that before now, if you look at it very well, many police and gendarmerie stations, mostly in the rural areas, where people's houses that were rented.
Yes.
And it took so long for these things to be done because people do not want it to happen. In town here, as we speak in Yaoundé, there are ministries that are renting people's houses.
I know
Yes,
that.
people's houses.
Even police stations.
It's even police stations. So you see that it's an organized crime,
yes.
And where people have decided to take the government hostage, and then they are getting out with things that
They have made themselves richer than the government.
Even the government.
Yes.
And when they even have to compensate the people in what they call compensation, you see how they undervalue the products. When they created the seaport in Crise, before they even signed the decree, a good number of politicians and top government went and bought all land in Crise. We went to studies with my students. Everywhere we want to ask a question, they have bought. So they have bought up to the seaport itself. And the places have not yet been built because they are still thinking of what they have to do. All these things have to be investigated.
For that, I had the privilege and honor to be at Konak when late Minister Kmer hit a hand on the table and he cannot continue. And that saved the government
a lot of it.
144 billion francs. Right. I'm telling you, all the big names you can call in this house, except the president, except the president of the republic. All the others. I'm telling you, if you see the booklet of 2014,
it's terrible.
You will cry.
So this is stop
the purchasing and the process of land.
They just took it so that they will give it to the government that this is part of the deep sea land. So pay us. So all those things was there with their fake land titles. Those land titles were cancelled by the Minister of State Property and Land Tenure. And the biggest activity. Unfortunately, she's gone. We'll extend our heartfelt condolences to the family of late Jacqueline Kung Abisike. She's from the BAM from Bafia Central. She ran several positions in the CPDM, the ruling party, and moved progressively, going through the post of Secretary General to become minister. Minister, and
she was really going to do a good job.
And she was really going to do a good job.
She even wanted to do
until
an X-ray of government property.
Yes,
she launched it.
Yes, she
to
launched
know how many cars the government has, how many houses the government has, the number. They stopped all those processes.
Yes. And they put the numbers. The numbers. The government houses have a license plates like cars.
Exactly.
She did that.
All public buildings.
So we'll remember her for her sticking out
the vision she wanted to have.
The vision for our country. And of course, we'll take appropriate time before her burial to present her life on that. So we'll end real estate on that sad note, and then of course we'll go to sports football. The postponement that was announced that the draws have initially, that is not scheduled for
the 25th.
The 25th have been postponed. But then the CAF Secretary General is on his way. He'll be entering into Yaoundé on the 14th, and then they'll work with the local organizing committee. And I'm sure there's a problem here of distribution of equal sharing of the income. The income, because Total was the sole sponsor. Now there is a power structure. We don't know the name of that power structure. That will be brought to light, and of course Cameroon will receive, as usual, an advance payment of its own shares for carrying that logo in all the stadiums, hotels,
many documents will be destroyed because they have already printed some documents with Total card.
So that will be taken care of, and I know the new president of CAF, Mosepe, he is the owner of big industries in South Africa and owns a football team, which is an international club. So we are sure he wants to make it really nice, so that we may see the children on the streets who have volunteers for this upcoming Nations Cup. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. They're going to remember
the tournament.
The tournament.
His first Nations Cup president of CAF.
The what they say, the dropout that will go down to
the trickle down effect.
Yeah, trickle down. Yes, it's going to help Cameroon a lot. It's going to help Cameroon a lot in the new year. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, our time is up. 1 or 2 words to conclude on any actuality, on anything recent. There's something recent, huh?
Yes, there is the appointment of the public independent
conciliator for the Northwest and Southwest.
Yeah. The one from the Southwest is a woman from Libya-Lem, who married to Mutaze. She has been a groom, experienced teacher in primary. She just went on retirement 1 year ago as regional delegate of primary and nursery education to the Southwest.
Okay.
And the one from the Northwest also is a man, which they appointed. We hope they will try to conciliate.
Mr. Tafu worked in
and move ahead with all the proposals which Siseko have given. We hope they will play their role. Though there is a lot of pessimism.
Well, anyway,
again, wrong choices in the wrong places because the people don't have any portfolio of the job description that have been given. Even the job description, because that is a job that needed people who had to get people that say that.
My last word is that the regime should understand that to solve an home crisis, they need neutral people who are popular, who can be received by these civil fighters.
But in other ways, they are also neutral because
they are neutral. They are from the civil party. No, they are from the party.
Everybody knows where they belong.
Unusual on my own page, so let's judge.
You need the talent in the You cannot produce result as a carpenter when you are a welder. So you cannot take a primary school teacher because you have grown in administration to become a public independent conciliator in a difficult context where you need a legal mind, where you need somebody who is accepted by the people. I have my own feelings. As a time who are talking about what background does he have?
It's a very big problem. It's a very big, wrong choice.
How is he going to?
Don't have a right to to call for.
They don't have the portfolio. They call the caliber to call people.
No, they don't have like him. Wait a minute. They have the possibility.
Their major job is that they are there to arbitrate. Their major job description is that they are there to arbitrate problems between the population and the local governments. Okay. That is the councils and the regional councils. And so we are saying that
for a matter of 6 years.
Yes, so it shows that it didn't need somebody to come and do a trial and error. They needed somebody who is experimented, somebody who is used to somebody who has acceptance. Yes. There are people, there are independent persons. They were appointed men of God.
Or the civil society.
To me, or civil society, but not that way.
What I am saying right now, do they have? How can you possibly do they have that possibility? You can answer that question. You can answer that question to yourself. How can you possibly somebody who is not received by people? Mr. I don't answer questions from you. Questions are from here. No, you don't.
According to the law, they have their own choices. Full stop. They have a secretary, yes, and they have the right to at least 5 different collaborators.
Okay.
But it does not give them the room on which type of collaborator they need to have. So as you said, it may still be possible that they get people that they want to use to do the thing. But then again, why would you appoint somebody for somebody else to do his work? It's like appointing the head of the English desk here, then they bring another subsidiary person who will be doing the work for you.
What is the work? We say that easily in French. Distribution équitable des fruits de la croissance.
C'est pas équitable. They actually will take the money. That's the problem. C'est pas équitable. They will not take money that somebody else is worth.
They will be paid. They'll be paid. When you
the powers that you are afraid. What they will be. I'm talking from the law.
Wait a minute. When you are principal now, that's like they're sitting there.
And the principal cannot delegate power.
No, you
cannot delegate power for somebody.
No, you can have a PTA, Parent Association teacher.
Activity task, yes, complicated.
No, you can do that. But then, if it is for armed conflict situation, no problem.
They realized that they didn't have the competence. What did they do? They brought in an expert. The deputy, Colonel Ekoso, is a specialist in armed conflict resolution. So he is trying. Whenever he goes to the field, you hear the boys saying that the person has come, he dances with them, he tells them about arms, ammunition, he tells them the negative aspect of it, and they understand better. I don't think the boss can do that. So why don't you put him the head and put the other person the assistant? That is what we're trying to keep watching. Being used, and the country will go better than these issues of making carpenters become medical doctors and vice versa.
That's a big problem in Cameroon.
Well, it looks like that was a hasty appointment, which would have been done at the level of the regions. The regional councils would have proposed 3 names and sent to hierarchy. Portfolio. Who are calculus, who are popular, who can stand the people. We will say time is still on our side. Nothing.
After a pastor, a reverend is the head of Konak, and he's doing some acceptable job. If you look the way he works, somewhere you see the fear of God in him, you see the result that he produces, irrespective of who is involved. So there is a possibility for us to have credible people in this country to man credible institutions and produce results. So that the people can first be soft.
Stop looking at the party that you're working in government. No,
it should no longer be the cat in terms of the current.
Don't be convincing on others. Let the public listen to one person at a time. You want to talk, we'll give you the floor. Please. Be cultured.
So in my conclusion, I'm saying that when they want to catch a mouse, they don't need to look at the color of the cat. They just need to be sure that the cat can catch the mouse, and when it does that, the house will be free of rats. So we are strongly suggesting that has already happened, but we should go beyond the color of the cat and be sure that we should get cats that can catch the rat and free the house from rats.
Okay, thank you very much for that conclusion, Mr. Kenefak. You have 1 minute to conclude.
Yes, exactly as earlier said.
On this topic or any other one?
Yes, on real estate. Real estate is property, and property is not only land and buildings. Property, as Mr. Ayonte is a geographer, we have mineral water, trees, and other elements. So it's the next crisis if we don't handle it well, because wealth is in the hands of a few while the masses are poor and Cameroonians are low income earners. So we should, the government, as you earlier said, the former late minister started, this one is also trying his best. They should lay more focus on that and try to see on how the procedure, the process to facilitate low income earners to acquire land in our nation.
Okay, Mr. Chua, you're a politician, you're a businessman. So take your choice.
Exactly.
For conclusion.
Yes.
Whether the political side,
my party members and all Cameroonians. Let me come. My party members and all Cameroonians are waiting eagerly for a new government shake-up. This is going to be a new government shake-up with youths who are going to help Cameroon to grow. And
if it comes that at 5 p.m. we hear your name. This night at 8 o'clock, Mr. Roland, please talk to your militants.
We are expecting the regime to bring in new blood in the system. They should forget about the sibling party. You have saved the party. Oh, let the people who work through. Let them put a carpenter in a carpentry workshop. Let them should not put mechanics to come the military. So they should work. They should learn from their mistakes. Close to 40 years is enough for stress and up and downs and the toiling. So the government should understand that it's time for rise. It's time to fall, and the government should be careful because the time of fall is showing near. But we don't want them to fall because we are the patriots. We're calling on them to do things right. We want a new government reshuffle that's going to touch all the 13 divisions of the Anglophone regions, and also, why not, other parts of the country. The national cake has stayed in the South region for too long, and we, the patriots, say no to that. We want Mr. Abia to understand that it is high time for him to rotate the national cake so that all Cameroonians can feel the gain. It is our country. We will not go to Nigeria to eat. We must complain to him. He's an elected of the people. We call on him to be serious in this cabinet reshuffle. Mr. Abia, we call on you to be serious in this cabinet reshuffle. We want new blood in the system. Put more Cameroonians of English expression. We are marginalized in terms of jobs. We cannot lie to you. And we want you to understand that the time is now to make a better Cameroon, so you can leave a legacy before you leave. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair Roland, and of course Sissoko, Dr. Ayonta, Mr. Kangafaka, the management consultant.
Thank you.
We still have a lot of things to manage, and you know. You have to read every silver lining in the sky.
Exactly.
Yesterday at 11 a.m., the Secretary General of the Presidency had new blood.
Yes.
New blood. And some people who thought that they will never go on retirement, their names are not there. So that calls for what? When the Secretary General of the Presidency is overhauled, you should understand that within the next 72 working hours,
the nation
will be a cabinet shuffle.
In our country.
That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for watching B News One. We want to thank you for listening to this program. It will be rebroadcast again. We don't know when, but it will be announced on B News. I want to thank our studio producer, Jean-Marc Beninguen, and our general manager, Ernest Obama. He will be coming on tomorrow on Le Club between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. And then we also say hi to our board chair, Mr. Luke Owona. Thanks for watching. And God willing, we'll be with you next weekend.